Good morning, Sally.
Good morning, Thomas.
Thanks for watching. You have reached Thomas and Sally's World, a conversation show about reselling. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, click the bell, thumbs up, thumbs down, leave us a comment, do it all. And today we're going to have our second video on hiring.
Well, Thomas, I understand you still may have that opening in the shipping department.
May still have that. I may not have filled it. Correct.
Well, everybody has their own approach to hiring. We've done a lot of hiring, Bill and I have, over the years, and I've developed an approach that works for me. May not work for everybody, but it's a place to start. And
Did Bill work in talent acquisition?
Pardon?
Did Bill work in talent acquisition? Basically hiring?
Sometimes.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I ever tell you about that his real job was to go and fire people? Did I tell you that ever?
No, like Up in the Air with George Clooney?
Well, I don't know. I've never seen that. But Bill, sometimes I said, honey, I know that sometimes you're hired to go fire somebody because the owner just can't, or it's his brother or somebody. And he said, yeah. I said, well, you gotta tell me how do you do that? I mean, what do you say? He said, well, it's pretty easy. I've done it for a number of years. I said, well, exactly how? He said, okay, well, the first thing I do when I get there is I call a general meeting, and they introduce me.
No.
And I tell them how pleased I am to be there. And I say, okay, now everybody who works for the Ajax company, raise your hand.
No.
Go ahead and put your hand down.
You don't do that. It's like a movie.
No, he doesn't. He's like that. He looks really serious. He just can't believe a thing he says. Anyway, so when we were hiring, there were a couple different positions we hired for. One of them was an entry-level job, and the other was for kind of a career position. If we were doing career position hiring, we'd often go to Indeed and get full-blown resumes back. But if we were looking for an entry-level job to be filled, we would go oftentimes to Craigslist. There are some caveats here, and we're going to go through them, but those are two common ways. We talked yesterday about some ways you don't want to hire. If you haven't watched yesterday's video, it's worth a look. First of all, don't hire, as I did, the guy standing outside of Home Depot with mad skills and no job. There's a reason. Don't
hire the woman who walks up to you at a thrift store and says she wants to work for you and is a little crazy. Bad idea.
Be careful when you're hiring friends. They sometimes want to turn into partners, and you just need to be a boss sometimes. And there's another thing. You will find, if word gets out that you have an entry-level position, there are people badly in need of work who may want you to hire them under some unusual circumstances. As usual, I have a story. Bill and I had a huge riding stable at one time, and we had guys that worked cleaning the stalls and managing the horses. And so one of my guys came to me and said, hey, Sally, I gotta ask you something. You're a good-hearted woman. We have this friend who is newly in the country. He's not legal yet, but he's going to be. He has a wife, he has kids, they don't have any food. Could you possibly give him a little bit of work? Well, tugged at my strings as a mother and so forth. So I said, okay. So I let the guy come on, and within a week, he had faked a back injury, gone to a doctor, and turned me into workers' compensation. It cost me $16,000 to get out of that one, but it got him into the country. So once again, if it sounds too good to be true, don't do it. And also, don't be afraid to say, you know what, I just can't do that. And then don't say another word. Bill always says, sometimes there's situations where the next person who talks loses, and that's one of them. I'm sorry, I just can't do that. And stay still. Anyway, so assuming you're going to go out looking for help, and let's say you're going to try Indeed and Craigslist, one thing you need to have, and it's funny that we don't normally think about this, is a pretty good idea of what the job is and what the requirements for it are. So again, may not work for everybody. I developed an 8-step system to try to make sure. Ooh, can you see it? Kind of. And
Man,
we're gonna.
You even printed it out. It's not even an iPad thing.
I did. We're gonna link it in our description and talk about it a little bit without trying to get too boring. And again, this isn't everything you need to know. It's the way it works for me.
I'm going to try to hold Sally accountable for that because she is a bore sometimes.
All right. Are you ready?
Let's do it. Step one.
Would you have for example, do you have job descriptions? You have people. Do you have them?
So this is actually totally pathetic. The 2 people I've hired, no job description, just works totally great.
It's working great, right?
W-2 employees, working great. Probably not great for liability purposes.
I don't know so much about liability. You were lucky. I don't know if you had to go through 10 people to get them or not, but maybe did you get them through referrals? That's another thing. If you get somebody through a referral, sometimes you can short circuit it because somebody has said, hey, Thomas has a job and this is what it is. Would you like it?
That's exactly. So the first one, my first employee, I just had met, and she worked for me part-time. And then over the course of a year, it was very clear that we could work together full-time. So there was that. And the second one was referral. And yeah, both have worked great. So now that I'm out of referrals, got to find another route.
Okay. There are 2 areas that I think you need to have a real clear understanding in order to make sure you don't solicit the wrong people and that you don't wind up hiring the wrong people because they're nice. Because I do that and it seldom works out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The 2 areas are knowledge and abilities. And for your shipping clerk, here are some things I might want to consider. Again, I'm going to put some samples up. I might want to know prior work experience. By the way, I wouldn't ask an entry-level person for a resume. That scares some really good candidates off. What you really want to know is what's your prior work experience, and not that you're looking for somebody who's had 12 years in the shipping department. You want to know if they held down a job. Have they been able to hold down a job? Means they probably came to work every day, which gets to be a problem more and more every day. And in that, have they had any related responsibilities? Have they had jobs that, for example, that shows that they can work without a lot of supervision? Now, for our shipping clerk job, I'm kind of assuming they're going to need to be able to type into a computer-generated screen, have some real basic computer skills. They need to be self-managing. I know you're not going to stand over them and tell them what to do. You're going to train them.
No, I cannot.
They need to be able to perform simple mathematical functions or be really pretty good at a calculator, because you're going to be having them do some, weighing and measuring, that kind of thing. And the last thing, and this gets a little bit, it's subjective, is language ability. For my shipping job, they need to be able to read, write, spell, and communicate effectively in English. They just do. They might also be good in another language, but basically that's the language that eBay operates in. That's what the shipping programs are in. And so I would say, those are things that they must have. There might be some other ones. Then the other area is the physical requirements. And too often, I think we're tempted to grab somebody's boilerplate and say, must be able to walk, stand, squat, sit, lift 50 pounds, and so forth. Really think about matching the actual job, the physical requirements of the job you're posting to what you need. Otherwise, you're going to eliminate probably some really good candidates. For example, in our shipping job, they got to have the use of their eyes. There's no way to get around that, their voice, and their hands. And I think they probably ought to be able to lift up to 20 pounds, although you probably don't have 20-pound items. They need to be able to stand or sit. They need to be able to move location. So I'm not sure why somebody that has limited mobility, for example, in a wheelchair, couldn't do my shipping position. They sit at a table. Well, yeah, but my guy pulls all of, well, so have somebody else pull it. sometimes you're going to get an employee you won't ever want to let go by making sure that you haven't excluded people who would otherwise be pretty good. So assuming we've got all of the job description and, simple things like, is this a part-time job? Is this a full-time job? I'm not going to get into 1099s or W-2s because that's something you really need to talk over with somebody who's in the financial industry. I do know that federally, you can pay up to $599.99 in wages before you have to file a 1099 or W-2.
I think that this is also a really good practice to write your own job description and, take the one we have, but look over it, change it yourself.
Absolutely.
Because it'll really make you understand what you want your employee to do.
Yeah, a funny thing, and you should also have a real clear understanding in your mind of what the duties are. So in my shipping department, this is what my shipping clerk does. They match a shipping order with an item to be shipped. They select the appropriate packaging material for the item and package it. They weigh and measure it and select the best shipping option. They print and attach a label. They place an item in an outgoing area. And there's one really important thing you want to always put at the bottom of it. And they should sign these when you hire them. The last one is, and perform any other duty or task that may be assigned by the supervisor. Again, sounds kind of ridiculous, but the truth is you're once in a million going to have somebody who says, hey, the job description I signed in for does not say that I need to pick up those papers. So that's all that'll cover you.
That's a really good one. I love that at the bottom. Love it. Can't love it anymore.
Covers a whole lot of stuff. So now we have created the position description and we know what physical requirements there are. We've talked about what the requirements are for the duties. And one thing I would suggest is get a simple Gmail account to use only for hiring, because you're going to get swamped with everything from spam ads to actual applicants, and you want to kind of keep it in one place. So we're going to post it. And the next thing that's going to happen is you are going to get inundated with everything. You're going to first trip through, you're going to throw out the ones that are wanting you to hire them because they have a hiring agency. You're going to get down to the ones that are most interesting. And the key here is speed. Remember that if it's a good candidate and they're applying for your entry-level job, they're also applying for other entry-level jobs. So what I do is when I do that first sort and I say, okay, these 12 look like are ones I want to pursue, I quickly send them a little email. And the email says, thank you very much for your interest in the position we posted. I'm attaching a bit more information about the job for you to review. And in that, I put, who I am, where we are, just some more stuff. If it looks like something you would be interested in, please let me know. We will be scheduling telephone interviews very shortly. So you've got a hook. So they say, oh, okay, well, I've gotten a response from that one, and it looks like something I want. Maybe I won't look any further. You want to kind of stop them in the process. Then when they get back to you, assuming they do, you've further filtered it a little bit, and you're going to schedule some face-to-face interviews. Telephone interviews. Yes.
So I've heard stories, suggestions even, about people putting little like indicators or requests or like little things like in those like return emails, whatnot, so that they can additionally sort people out. What I mean by that is in your job posting, you could write something like, if you're interested, send me a 3-sentence write-up about who you are, where you're from, and your previous work experience. And that way you would have proof that they can read, write in English, like not comprehensively.
Conversationally.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a really good idea. In the first one we've said, send your past experience, but you're right. So something that when they respond, you get to know them a little bit better. Tell me a little about yourself and why you think this might be a good job for you. Do it quickly. We're scheduling telephone interviews. You want to put some time constraints on it. That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that. I think I naturally do it. I just hadn't thought about saying it. So now you've got those back, and you're going to schedule some face-to-face interviews of your top choices. That's pretty, you're going to know. They're going to come in. They're either going to fit in, not fit in. They're going to look around the place and say, I don't want to do this. So now we're down to you have somebody you want to hire. Don't forget those you almost hired. I would, to my top candidates that I did not hire, I would send a message back to them saying, we have filled a position, but we were very impressed with you. We would like to keep you in our files to contact you should there be another job opening, because sometimes plan A doesn't work. And other thing is, maybe next week somebody else will quit. It would be nice to start with somebody who's gone partially through that process. Yeah, I was going to say.
So when you're, so when do you do? Yeah, I'll go. So when do you do a background check?
That is entirely up to you. I talked in the last video about the horrors of not performing a background check. For me, in an entry-level job, unless they have access to things that, money, private information, things like that, a lot I will find out by their prior job experiences. If anything, I might call those prior jobs, remembering that many companies can't give you information. So the key question to ask is this person eligible for rehire at your company? It's on your arm. That allows them to say yes or no. They can say that. They can't say, she's a bum and she didn't show up for work, but she's either eligible or not eligible. If they say not eligible,
wow, that's a really good bit.
Yeah, if they say not eligible, run, don't walk, because it's been attendance or some action that's been pretty egregious, especially in these days where everybody needs help. Don't forget, I have done this. Don't forget to cancel your ads, write those notes to the close contenders. And one other thing, you must save all of the applications you received. Put them someplace. You're probably never going to need them. But in the unlikely event that 2 months down the road, you get a call and it's from the Equal Employment Office, and they say, listen, we need to talk to you about the job you just filled. We have had a complaint that there was a fully qualified applicant and you didn't hire them because they were, pick one off the list. And if you have all the other applications, it makes it very easy, and they love it because you can say, well, here are the applications I got. Here's the application for the person I hired. We did voice interviews, and this is why I hired them. It will save you in the long run to just hang on to those papers.
Makes a lot of sense. So we have several documents that we're uploading to the description. So if you're interested, you can look them up. And those documents are the 8 steps to hiring. It's the job description. It's the job posting. And these are all not estimates, but these are all just these are immediate drafts for my position. They're examples. Right. We don't recommend using these, not that you couldn't, but just because everyone's position, everyone's job requirements are going to be slightly different.
Our job was to kind of give you a reference of things that have worked for me in the past in making sure I get the right people hired. So on video 1, we talked about when do you need to hire, and how do you make that decision? In this one, we've talked about, okay, well, we're going to hire. What are some things, what are ducks we need to get in order to be in a position to even talk about hiring, and then how to do it for a couple of common areas, Indeed and Craigslist, for example. What are we going to do tomorrow, Thomas?
Ooh, buddy, we're going to be talking about, how would you say it? Different out-of-the-box methods and different ways to think about hiring, and things to do once you've made that hire. if there's special calls you have to make, special registrations you have to do. And every state's different, but there's definitely some federal requirements. And again, we're not tax professionals, but these are just things that you have to do that are systematic.
And some of them aren't even requirements. They're just, man, if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. For example, things like how do you keep track of when they came and left? Things like that. Anyway, tomorrow will be based on my experience and the job that Thomas has open. And I think you're going to be flooded with applications after you do what we talked about in this video. And tomorrow we're going to talk about, it's kind of like fishing. Now you caught the fish, what do you do? Or what did they say? The dog who chases the cars all the time, what does he do once he gets one? Well, anyway, we're going to talk about those things tomorrow.
And this is a promise to myself. I'm going to post my job on Craigslist, on Indeed, maybe just Craigslist. We'll do both. See what responses I get, and I'll give you an update tomorrow.
Okay, well, have a good one.
Thank you. See you soon, Sally. Enjoy the creamer. Yep. Lick it out of the little cup. Good girl.
I'm wearing the top that you told me made me look like an old lady before.
Yeah, I can tell.
What do you mean you can tell? What is old lady about this?
Well, we'll address that on the call.
No,
okay, so
we will not address whether I look like an old lady on the call.